Now, the people should be aware that they want that all the people, the people of modern society, the people of post-colonial era, they should be aware that subaltern too need to be witnessed and wanted that the difference between the bourgeois and elite should be taken into account. And also they want that how the exploitation has been done by the elite class. This should also be taken into account, which Gayatri Spivak has said in her essay. Now, moving towards the next slide. Now, according to Gyan Prakash, what he has stated. So far as I have just said what Gayatri Spivak has said, what you know this person earlier, the name of the person, what he has said. Now focusing on what Gyan Prakash in his essay, what he has said. According to Gyan Prakash, the formations of subaltern studies is an intervention in South Asian historiography occurred in the wake of the growing crisis of Indian states in the 1970s. The dominance of nation state, the dominance of, yes, just a minute. Uh, yes, the dominance of the nation state cobbled together through compromises and coercion during the nationalist struggle against British rule became precarious as its program of capitalist modernity sharpened social and political inequalities and conflicts. Faced with the outbreak of powerful movements of different ideological hues that challenged its claim to represent the people, the state resorted increasingly to represent, to preserve its dominance. Now, according to him, what he said that he's talking about the crisis that came in 1980 and the dominance of the upper class. Here, according to Jan Prakash, what he stated in this slide, he tries to say the dominance of the upper class people to the exploitation to the lower class people and the powerful movement and the ideology that they are facing and the proletariat people, all the marginalized people are previously what I have talked about. I mean these the atrocities can be omitted only about the two ways that I have stated. Number one was revolution, or number two was step by step struggle. So these are the two ways through this slide. Gyan Prakash tries to focus on the ideology, on the fact that how they the dominance of upper class and the exploitation of the lower class by the elite as well as the bourgeois class being omitted, and how they can be omitted only by two ways. That was, of course, I have discussed revolution and or step by step struggle. Then Gyan Prakash is very briefly talking about the problem, the conditions of suffering, the sufferings of the proletariat and the marginalized or the working class people. He has, in a very, very detailed way, in a very, very detailed form, has discussed about the problems of the working or the marginalized class. When I say marginalized, it always means the people who belong to poor class, the people, the commoners, the working class people, the working. Then another point that is another slide that I'm moving on to the another slide that is by Ranjit Guha. Ranjit Guha, he was born on 23rd May 1922. Yes. Subaltern study was basically inspired by Ranjit Guha, as I told you. a distinguished historian whose most notable previous work was A Rule of Property for Bengal, which was written in 1963. Then 12 edited volumes of historical scholarship, mainly on the history of colonial India, which were published between 1982 and 205. The first six volumes being edited by Guha, and the remaining volumes, this has been discussed in the essay by Gyan Prakash. He has talked about of Ranjit Guha and has mentioned that that the six volumes being edited by Guha and remaining volumes being edited by other scholars associated with the project. Many of whom he had mentored or influenced. This proved to be one of the more influential currents in the historical thought in the last quarter of the 20th century and extensively responsive to changes in the prevailing intellectual climate. Then this is one of the great, Ranjit Guha is one of the great personalities who has made a notable contribution in subaltern study. He was primarily recognized, or we can say, made a good establishment in this regard. His 12 volume out of 6 was edited by Guha and published by him. Then I'm just switching over to the next slide. That is more about Ranjit Guha. Like Ranjit Guha's elementary aspect of peasant insurgency in colonial India, 1983, is a powerful example of a scholarship that seeks to recover the peasant from elite project and positivist historiography. Subaltern study drew an anti-humanist structure and post-structuralist writing. Ranjit Guha's deft reading of colonial records, in particular, drew explicitly from Ferdinand de Saussure, Claude de Lévi-Strauss, Roman Jakobson, Ronald Barthes, Michael Foucault. Partially, the reliance on such theories and the emphasis on textual reading arose from, as this Dipesh Chakrabarti points out, the absence of worker diaries and other such sources available to British historians, where I need to discuss these points. Here, Ranjit Guha is speaking that the history before was not published about marginalized or working people. So the author, they used to publish the elite people, upper class of society. But they're not focusing about the struggles of low class people. That is the reason that there is no writing history about them. There was no writing. There was we don't find anything related to these subaltern people, these poor people, these struggling people, or the post-colonial history. There was not such people captured by any author. Now, moving towards the next slide, there are some quotes, there are some extracts that I have taken out from the essay by Jan Prakash that need to be discussed here in detail. That are There are some uh, quotes. Yes, it is true that the efforts to retrieve the autonomy of subaltern subjects resemble the theory from below approach developed by social history in the West. In this context, Gyan Prakash is talking about to bring back the autonomy. What autonomy? The centeredness. What autonomy? I mean, literature was completely occupied by upper class as well as as not only literature but history also has been captured by aristocrats or the upper class of society. So what he wants to say while dealing with this quotation, he wants to bring back the autonomy of subaltern subjects. So the history from below. What he says? History from the below. that I have made an inverted comma, you can see in my slide that the history from below. So the history from below. He wants to say that history should be developed not by top to bottom. It should not be dealt with, but to bottom to top. What he says that history should not be discussed from top to bottom. Rather, there should be the commoner. There should be the people those who belong to lower category, lower class. They should be discussed in a primarily way, in a exceedingly way. To say that history, yes, to what that is from working class people from to kingship. You know, this is from working class people to kingship, not from kingship to working class of people. So the history from below is a new approach. This is a new approach presented by who has presented this approach. This, approach is being presented by Gyan Prakash. Now, my next point is the desire to recover the subaltern autonomy was repeatedly frustrated because subalternity, by definition, signifies the impossibility of autonomy. Subaltern rebellion only offered fleeting moment of defiance, a night time of love, not a lifetime of love. What he tries to say through this point, he tries to say here through the second point, he's talking about the impossibility. What is talking? He's talking about the impossibility of autonomy. Autonomy is not impossible. Of course, it is possible. It is possible. They should be discussed from bottom to top. This is not an impossible thing because the rebellion was against the elite or bourgeois class. There are some people, they form a group and they become rebellious. They completely against of these society. There's a rule that is being governed by autonomous, aristocratic people. It was like a night time of love, not a lifetime of love. And the proletariat sort of people has gone to achieve night time of love, not the lifetime of love. As marginalized people do rebellion by the success was not for a long time, but it was just for a night time. The success that was there, it was just for a very, very short time. It was just for a very, 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 passage of time. It was just a very, very shorter period of time. It is not been pertained for a longer time. So what he says is just a night time of happiness, night time of love. So this need should be omitted. This needs to be discussed. It just one night time of love, where that I've already explained. Now another point: India peasant has left no source, no document from which their own voice could be retrieved. To this point, what he wants to say here, first he should try to know that who were peasants. As when I started my lecture, there was a word that was peasant by Buha. Who are peasants? I just told you that it should be discussed. Who are peasants? The answer is they are the poor smallholders of agriculture. Who are peasants? Poor people. Those who possess a very small quantity of agricultural land, labor class of people, those or who belongs to a very low category, low status. They had fought for the autonomy and they became rebellion against the elite class. They made a group, they form a group, and they just made their rebellion. They became a rebellious attitude towards elite people, and they just came together, came forward just to start struggling through step by step, made a revolution, and with a very slow and steady form way. As they are not educated, of course, They are poor. They do not have uh, so much of income. They do not have so much of things that can be made by them, as they are not. So they in a very they had a very low wages. So still there are, and they are not educated because of the low wages. They were in a very hard manner. They feed themselves, their family, and carry out uh, the family. Their conditions, was not being portrayed. They do not portray their condition in a written form because of illiteracy, because of